ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Welcome, everybody. It's just not sports. It's a way of life. I am your host, Alex the One, getting it done. Yo, Latino extraordinaire. And today we got an amazing show. And, of course, I got my co-host. Give it up for...
Jose Contreras. What's going on, everybody?
Jose.
Chicagoland Sports Radio. Like
welcome.
Someone just said.
That's right.
It's not just sports, it's a way of life.
That's
it's a way of life here.
It's a way of life, man. And you know, Chicago, we got the Bulls.
Yep.
We got the Bears.
Yep.
If you live on the north side, you probably pro Cubs. If you live on the south side, you probably pro Sox.
Absolutely.
Blackhawks right now playing.
They're not bad actually. You know, they're in a full rebuild, but you know, with new head coach Luke Richardson, they've been playing very hard for him, man, and they're a tough out for any team right now.
They're a brand new team, right?
Yes, brand new
team. They're still trying to figure out
Very
that chemistry.
young.
They just got treated the other day by New York, the Islanders. Is that correct?
Yep.
It's okay, Chicago. We're used to this. We're used to teams being destroyed from greatness and being put back together piece by piece. It might take a while, but I guarantee you we'll get there again.
It's very true. We are used to it. It's pretty sad.
It's very sad, but it's just the way of life. And you know what? When we talk about sports, now Chicago is known for a lot of great things. I know Chicago. We're very hungry in the underground as far as we're fighters for sure. We have a huge boxing population here in Chicago.
Yes, we do.
And let me ask you, do we have a huge wrestling population as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Wrestling.
100%. Here, Chicago is one of the biggest wrestling cities in the country.
Really?
Yes. We'll have, especially with AEW, you'll have almost every single one of the most important pay-per-views are here in Chicago.
Okay.
And WWE, whenever WWE comes to town, you know they're going to have a rowdy crowd, and they're really passionate.
They're sold out instantly, almost, right?
Almost.
Instantly.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Have you ever went to a WWE or AEW? Yes.
Plenty of them. I went to plenty of WWE ones. I've been currently going to AEW. For me, they have the better shows, but WWE is coming right back. Now that Triple H is in power, their shows are getting a lot better for sure.
Okay. I remember, you know, this is messed up. I've only been to one WWE match in my whole life.
Really?
And that's when I was a little kid.
Okay.
All right, so really quickly, today we're talking wrestling. If you guys don't know where we're going with this, we are talking wrestling. And I have one great memory of my father, rest in peace. He never really took me out to like social events like that. But wrestling, him and I used to sit down Sundays, watch the fights, pay-per-views. Every once in a while, we used to have a hot box. We used to go to somebody's house, hot box, watch all those pay-per-views. Right. And one time, you know, on the commercials that says, you know, live, we're going to be in this city. We're going to be in that city. Right. One time they were in Chicago. And I told my dad, hey, Pa, you know, they're in Chicago this week. My dad's like, what? Say no more. Boom. And this is well, maybe Ticketmaster was around. But we actually just went to the event and bought tickets at the door.
Yeah.
Can you do that today?
No, I mean, you can. You still can, but everyone does it online now.
Everybody does it online?
Yeah, it's 100% online.
Okay, so I was fortunate to go there, and I got to see some legends. And as a kid, I was just like, blown away, right? So fast forward to now, wrestling is still a very popular sport, correct?
Yes, 100%. Of course.
Yes, okay. And
I think it's bigger now than it was back then. Well, I don't want to say it's bigger, right? But because there's so many different promotions that give you so many great matches and have so much a bunch of great talent, it's for sure popular, 100%.
So definitely for sure here in the States, right?
Yeah.
It's also huge in Latin America.
Yes, it is.
It's huge, especially like in Mexico.
Yep.
It's huge in Japan, right? They have a huge wrestling network out there. Where else is it as big as those three countries?
I think you mentioned Canada is another great country that has wrestling in it. You know, so you think about the Hart family. There's the history there. That's there. Chris Jericho, who's still wrestling to this day, he's in AEW currently, is a Canadian. You know, so is Edge, who's also wrestling. Christian, who's also wrestling. Believe it or not, these guys are still there in the business doing it now, and you have a lot of great Canadian wrestlers.
So they'll body slam you and then say A, right? Body slam A.
Basically.
All right. No, that's awesome. And check this out. Today in ChicagolandSportsRadio.com, we were hoping to have a very special guest. Yes. But still, shouts out to Joe Alonso Jr., Illinois, Chicago's very own. Yes. Joe, I wish you was here with us, but check this out. I'm going to give a little backtrack of your story. You're 25 years old, very young, has roots all over the place. The United States, Canada being another one, Mexico, and Turkey. So, you know, he has wrestling in his blood no matter what, right? And being from Chicago, again, we have sports like basketball, football, baseball. I mentioned the boxing. Jose just put me on wrestling. I didn't know that wrestling was that big here in Chicago. So what do you think someone from the streets of Chicago needs to become a professional? I mean, he's a professional wrestler, but to get on the mainstreams like WWE, AEW, like what does somebody like that need to do?
Dedication, man. Okay. Dedication 100%. Because, you know, in this industry, your break could come at any given moment.
Yes.
And just like here in the Illinois media school, right? You know, in the media industry, you have to be consistent in everything that you do, because all it takes is just one person to believe in you.
Yes.
Just one person to like what you're doing, like what you can do in the ring, right? As far as professional wrestling, and boom, hey, I like the way you work. I got some work for you. You know, and then from there you build your resume, you build your career. Obviously, nowadays with in this society, your social media presence has to be on point, because
that's part of the marketing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think about it now, right? Before, back then, when we didn't have social media, how wrestlers, the only way they would be able to put themselves out there is to be able to work in small events. Now you can work in small events, you can work in maybe even smaller, and just put it out there on social media, and someone can see you.
So, okay, I hear what you're saying. Social media. So let's just say myself, right? Alex the one. I want to be a wrestler. Do I go out to the streets and buy some tighty whities and bleach them a certain color and put some headband on me and call me some crazy name? Or is there more to that?
I'm glad you mentioned it, because I do get like there's memes out there, there's videos that where if I'm on social media just scrolling or whatever, I do see people just randomly go into restaurants or just in the middle of the street doing wrestling moves, just kind of as a prank, but also like they look legit doing it, right? But they get a following just for that, because hey, it's funny, you're doing it in a local place. People are like, what is going on here?
Oh, yeah, like a Walmart or something like that.
Right. But you can do that. You know what I mean? You can do that, and people are like, he's pretty good. He might have a career in wrestling. You know,
I gotta admit some to you, Jose. I used to be an amateur wrestler when I was about 5, maybe 10. Me and all my friends from the neighborhood, we'd go to somebody's front yard or backyard, and it was all gated. And I'd be like, I'm this character, and my neighbor would be like, I'm that character, and we used to go heads up. And when I was a kid, I didn't know wrestling was fake. I thought it was real. You couldn't tell my dad it was fake. He'd be yelling at that TV. He'd be swearing in Spanish, this, that, and the other. And I thought it was real too. My friends thought it was real too. So we used to hit each other for real. Like we used to body slam each other for real. And I remember that hurt like a mother. You know what I'm saying? So as an amateur wrestler, 25, here in the streets of Chicago, trying to come up, what kind of wear and tear does that do to a person? Because these are professionals.
Yes.
They make it seem like it's real, but to them it's just like an act. It's like a dance.
100%. It's
does
acting.
It hurt? Does it not?
You hit it right in the head. It's acting, it's dancing, it's entertainment, right? But for them, it's very real. Like these guys practice for hours out the day, working on these moves, right? The thing about professional wrestling is it's scripted. But everything they do in that ring, as far as to their bodies, is 100% real. 100%. If you ever been chopped, like you hear the chops when these guys they really chop each other. That it's really a chop. But they literally have performance centers where they're just practicing that, right? They kind of get numb to it, they get used to it, and practicing and performing in those performances are so important, because any little move could end your career. We had a wrestler, say a couple months ago, Big E, live on TV, Friday Night SmackDown. He got a regular suplex went wrong. He cracked his vertebrae. So
I can't spell YouTube and check this out. You remember Sid Vicious?
I do.
You know what I'm talking about? So Sid Vicious, he's about to he gets on the turnbuckle and he's about to do a move, and he landed wrong. And you just see that ankle go in a direction it was not meant to go. And it was just a crazy thing. So wrestling, is it fake? Yeah, it's a performance. However, it can be very risky. Mind you, these people are getting hit over the head with chairs, going through tables, falling off ladders. They're falling off the, even though it's padded, that's concrete underneath. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that hurts. That hurts a lot. So it's just very crazy. Myself, when I was a kid, I used to be a big wrestling person. Now, I gotta admit, I kind of fell off a little bit on the wrestling. I'm not big as I used to be. However, I still see it's very popular. My kids are even into wrestling right now, right? They buy all the little toys just like I did, right? So they got the toys and then the belt. Who didn't have the belt? I had a WWE belt, and I used to wear it with pride like that thing was for real. You know what I'm saying? How about you, Jose? Did you ever have a belt?
Yes, I still do.
You still do? You still walk in the house like, yeah, I'm the champ?
No, my son's beating. my sons own those titles now. We had wrestling matches.
So Jose, man, I got a lot of questions, right? And we was hoping to play this game with Joe. But Joe, check this out. We're gonna show you. We're gonna play this next time you come on the show. And the name of the game is called "It's Time to Separate the Men from the Boys." Right. So we have a list of questions here, and we are going to give you an option to choose one or the other. Now, if you choose one or the other, you will get 1 point. However, if you say, you know what, they're both great, or I can't choose, you take the politically correct answer, then you get 2 points, right? So at the end of the game, we line them up. If you get 1 point for answering correctly, and or if you get 2 points for answering politically correct, you'll either fall in the men category or you'll fall in the boys category. So I don't know about you, Jose. You want to be a man or a boy?
Oh yeah, man, for sure.
Man, for sure.
We gotta separate the men.
That's right. We got to separate the man from the boys. And today it's going to be Jose versus me. That's right. So who will come out victorious? And I'm going to do my very best not to be politically correct. Just out about you.
Yeah. So what is politically correct?
Politically correct. Okay. So let's just say I say apples versus bananas. And I say, I don't know. I can't pick, man. They're both very nutritious and I enjoy them both. I'm going to say both. That's politically correct.
No both. Like, give a straight answer.
If you can, right? If you're man enough to give the straight answer, then that's the direction we're going to go. So we talked about Joe Alonso Jr. He's definitely a heel.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
So what is a heel for the people who don't know the lingo, wrestling lingo?
So a heel in the wrestling world is a bad guy, basically. Right. He's the antagonist of the two. There's heels and then there's baby faces, which are the good guys.
Good guys.
So the good guys, right? And it's like again, talking about wrestling, it's like a dance, like you said, it's acting, it's like a novela, it's like a soap opera, right? Where you have the good guy, you have the bad guy, and they're working together. You know what I mean? It's one versus good versus evil, stuff like that, and it works. It works because when the bad guy wins, the fans are mad. That's what you want. You know what I mean? The fans are like, "What is going on? How can he win?"
And they're mad for real.
Yes.
I've heard stories really quickly before we go into that. There's a couple programs that document the behind the scenes of wrestling and stuff like that. And there's certain wrestlers that would say they would go out to the parking lot at the end of their shows and they'd be like fans. They're pissed off, trying to break windows, come out there with weapons. I mean, they're pissed off. What's his name? Jimmy Hart, a very famous old school manager for wrestling, right?
Big heel too.
Big heel. Said one time he was at a match and a fan blew like a dart and hit him in his butt. That's like, what? And they found out who did it. And guess what? He got dealt with the court.
You got to.
Okay, so, but anyways, let's go ahead. Let's time to separate the men from the boys. You ready, Jose? Babyface or heel?
Oh, it has to be a heel. I feel like heels are they're fun. Like if you're playing a heel, like you get to be a complete a-hole for no reason. You know what I mean? Just for the fun of it. There's a wrestler. There's a current wrestler today. His name's MJF in AEW. He is such a good heel, and you know what? He carries that over even outside the ring. So like whenever there's live events or whatever, he's like just out in the crowd and he's like signing autographs for kids. He is so rude. But it's just his persona. It's his character. He never breaks it, but it's so good. He's one of the greatest heels, I think, in wrestling today. Because the man, he can cut a promo like it's nothing. He's really good.
See, now this one's tricky for me. Because all my life I've been raised to go for the babyface, to root for the hero, to root for the good guy, not like the bad guy, not like the villain.
Right.
However, the older I got, the more I understood the heel.
Exactly.
And just like you said, it looks like it's a lot more fun to play.
Right.
So what do I choose? I think I have to go politically correct on this one.
Really?
The very first one got me because I'm pro babyface, but I like to be a good heel, bro. So I don't know, man. Looks like Jose's winning over here. So number 2, steel cage or a ladder match.
Oh, okay. Steel cage ladder match. Here's the thing. If you're afraid of heights, both matches are not good for you, right? Because if it's a steel cage, in order to win that steel cage, you have to get out of the steel cage.
You got to climb out.
You got to climb out. And it's ladder matches. We all know it's a ladder. It's in the name. You got to climb the ladder, get the belt, retrieve the belt, and you win.
And last I checked, they don't sell fake ladders made out of rubber, right? That's a real ladder.
These are steel aluminum ladders that you're using.
So how do ladder matches work? I mean, do they hang like a belt at the top, or do they just have to like use the ladder as a weapon, or like how does that work?
Yeah. So the belt. So if it's a title match, the belts will be suspended right up in the air, right? In order to win, you grab the ladder, you climb the ladder, you got to get the belt, and that's it. But you have one or multiple other people with you who also want that same belt. So just imagine climbing in and someone comes out of nowhere, hitting you off, suplexing you off. If I had to choose between the two, it'll probably be a steel cage for that reason, because ladder matches I feel like are a lot more dangerous, especially nowadays when you see ladder matches with 6 or 7 guys. Because how are you gonna win? You ever try if you ever played the video games, the wrestling video games on the PS4, PS5?
You know what? I'm going old school. Right. Nintendo, the first one.
Okay.
Games were garbage.
Right.
But they evolved over time.
They did. They have evolved, and my son likes to play the games. So whenever I play with them, if we do a ladder match, and it's a 6-man ladder match. I'm trying to climb. It's so hard to win because you're trying to climb up the ladder, and yet someone else is just coming after you. And it's like
knocking the ladder down.
How do you win? I can only imagine in real life how these guys do it. It's crazy.
So okay, this is scripted. Imagine hey, man, go a little easy on the ladder. You know what I'm saying? Now, have people got actually
hurt?
Yeah.
I'm sure they get 100%. I'm sure they get hurt 100% of the time. But these guys, these wrestlers nowadays, they don't soften up. They don't slow it down. Why? Because you have to put on a show for the fans, and these diehard wrestling fans have seen a lot of crazy stuff in their day.
Yes.
So you gotta outmatch that. You gotta outperform that. So you gotta do some crazy stuff. You gotta fly off the ladder, do something. You remember Jeff Hardy? How he used to just swan-time on the Dudley Boys and tables off the ladder?
Yes.
Imagine. You have to outperform ladder matches like that.
See, this is why I'm not a professional. That's why I gave up my wrestling career at the age of 10.
Right.
Because I knew, situations like this, I just couldn't handle the pressure. So, Jose, are we talking ladder or steel cage for you?
Oh, no, steel cage.
Steel cage?
Yeah, for that reason. You know what? I'll climb the cage and jump off if I have to. That's fine.
I got to go with steel cage myself, only because it's old school. It was like the first thing.
Right.
Before the ladder, before the table matches, before any of that, steel cage was the first one. And when they lowered that cage down, it's like you knew it was on. And we had some classic steel cage matches. Okay, next question. A real name or a gimmick? And let me explain this. A real name, my name is Bob Smith, and I'm a wrestler.
Right.
Or I'm calling myself the table guy. That's a gimmick.
Yeah, it's a gimmick.
You know what I'm saying? So what works for you?
It has to be a gimmick.
The gimmick.
Jose Contreras. I don't know how intimidating that sounds.
Jose Contreras. Off the top rope. All right. It just sounds good. But we've had a lot of gimmick cool characters, like iconic. We have the Undertaker, iconic gimmick, right? Mick Foley, right? Another classic.
Mankind. But Mick Foley is someone who uses real name and his gimmick name.
He did both.
Because he played multiple characters. He played Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love. I think there was one more, but I think that was pretty much it, right?
Right.
But he was also Mick Foley. He also wrestled as Mick Foley.
So he did both. So
yes.
What was he better at, Mick Foley or Mankind?
You know what?
He's
had legendary matches in every single one. The name doesn't really. The name is important, but it's the person behind the name. It's the character, it's the person behind the name that really, drives that name altogether.
So for you, it's real name.
Yeah, because as Mick Foley, he had great matches with Edge. He had a great rivalry at WrestleMania. Great with Edge, but as Mankind, Undertaker, when he threw him off the Hell in a Cell onto the table.
This is true.
He had rivalry with Stone Cold when he was Dude Love. You know what I mean? So it's like, he was great. He was just a great wrestler.
I gotta say gimmick, because if you could pull off a gimmick,
yeah,
like a real gimmick, yeah, you got me. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of classic tag team gimmicks. There's a lot of single individual gimmicks. Again, Undertaker, one of the greatest wrestlers. When he came out, when he did the tag team with his supposedly with Kane, that was another gimmick, right?
Right.
And they had a whole thing about Kane's face. I mean, there's a whole backstory to that.
Brothers of Destruction.
Brothers of Destruction, right? So I gotta say,
You know what? Put me down for both. Now, after talking about Mankind, how can you not go with both? You know what I mean?
Yes. All right, very good. All right, face paints or masks?
Ooh.
See, now this was a tricky one because there's a lot of, again, tag team characters from my era. I'm talking about Legion of Doom, Road Warriors. We have Demolition, The Ultimate Warrior. A lot of great wrestlers wore the paints. Even Kane at one time. Was that was a mask, right?
Right.
But mask, I think that's more like lucha libre. Don't you think? Like lucha libre is they wear more of the mask. And in the lucha libre community or that industry, if you take off that mask, it's like that's it. They can't wrestle anymore, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So in the lucha libre community, there's no way you're able to take off the mask, or it's almost like a dishonor. It's almost like a dishonor in that culture. You know what I mean? Like whenever a mask is being taken off, you see them clearly right away hide their faces and they shoot. They're just out of there.
So like Rey Mysterio, he has a mask,
Right.
and they've taken it off a couple times, right?
Yeah.
But he still wrestles.
Yep.
So is it just because he's in the WWE? The same rules don't apply? You think? Is his name too big?
No, I don't think his name's too big. I just think, you know, it can be actually. It's a good question. It's a really good question.
Because if he followed the rules of Lucha Libre, that should have been it for him, right? No more Rey Mysterio. Now, could he come back as under a different name? Or have people already seen his face? And
we've seen his face before, but like, I believe that's been in WCW. I don't know if we've ever seen it in WWE, but now that he's in WWE, it's like a different thing. Like, you know what? It never happened. Sort of, you know what I mean? Kind of say. But even now, because he still wrestles to this day. Even now, when he's out there, and someone tries to take his mask off, he's immediately hiding his face.
So face paint or mask?
Right. So I'm going with the mask.
The mask.
It all depends on your character, right? Because there's a lot of guys that still use face paints, but those guys are more like the darker guys. You know what I mean?
I gotta say face paint only for this reason. You can go out to the store and buy a mask. You can get creative and start stitching stuff on a mask, right?
Right.
But to come up with makeup to make it fit for your face, that's a whole different. That's just a level of creativity that I don't have, right? So I gotta go with that. So next question.
Fixed it.
2 legendary companies that no longer exist, but what impact did they have for you? I'm talking about the great WCW, World Championship Wrestling, or ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling.
WCW all the way.
WCW.
100%. Has to be that. I feel like as much as I liked ECW, it wasn't around. It wasn't as iconic as WCW was. WCW was like one of the first companies that were able to compete with WWF at the time. And
that was the main competition?
Yeah, main competition. And everybody and all the wrestlers that were in WWF that left, like Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. All the greats. 1, 2, 3 Kid went over there. Stone Cold Steve Austin was over there. Chris Jericho was over there. Rey Mysterio. They all came from WCW. A lot of the greats that we've known, that we love, a lot of them came from WCW. Goldberg originated in WCW. The legend, the late great Eddie Guerrero, you know, was in WCW. You know, and then once WWF had bought it out, that's when they migrated over.
Now you do make a point. WCW was a lot longer than ECW. However, the short amount of time that ECW was around, they really did something different, because when we talked about earlier, the ladder match, the steel cage match, these guys were coming up with matches that were just insane, where people looked like they really hurt for real. Like, this is not a gimmick. They're really messed up, right? So I don't know, man. I gotta say both, though. I gotta say both. For me, it's both. I can't just pick one or the other. It has to be both, only because WCW was great, but ECW, for the short amount of time that it came out, it was like, whoa.
Right.
And a lot of greats came out of there too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Very good. So last question for this, and then we're going to get into some finishers. So do you enjoy, or do you think, what's more impactful, the Royal Rumble or SummerSlam?
Ooh.
Both are really good.
Royal Rumble is definitely a lot more impactful. The reason being is because it's first off, it's the first pay-per-view of the entire year, right? B, it's in the road to WrestleMania. WrestleMania is the biggest pay-per-view in wrestling, period. Doesn't matter what company it is.
That's like the World Series.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't matter what company it is. Everybody knows WrestleMania is it. And the Royal Rumble is so significant to WrestleMania because in order to be the main event of WrestleMania and get a title shot, which is every wrestler's dream, you have to win the Royal Rumble. So it has to be Royal Rumble 100%. SummerSlam is the second biggest show in WWE, but that's like the summer. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's WrestleMania, then it's SummerSlam right underneath. So I don't want to
because SummerSlam to me is like a WrestleMania Junior.
Yeah. You don't want to downgrade. You don't want to talk about like it's just a downgrade, but I feel Royal Rumble is important in that aspect.
So Royal Rumble, the whole thing is it 30 people?
Yes, 30 men.
30 men, right? So one comes out, two comes out, they start wrestling.
Yes.
And every 3 minutes?
I believe so.
Every 3 minutes?
It might have went shorter.
A little shorter?
Yeah, it might have got shorter, but yeah.
So there's X amount of minutes, and then somebody else comes in.
Somebody else comes in.
So you're fighting with this guy, all of a sudden this guy comes in fresh.
Yep, fresh.
And okay, who do I attack? The guy who's looking weaker, right? Sometimes they tag team you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like whatever, everybody against everyone. But it gets very interesting when that ring is full of like 10 people.
Yep.
And one person's going out. You see one guy clearly tired, hanging on to the ropes, trying to do something, trying to make something happen. Sometimes you see some of the most impactful wrestlers get thrown out first.
Right.
You're like, what happened here? I remember one year, the Undertaker got thrown out by some like new guy. And Undertaker, he broke the rules. He went right back in there and got him out.
Right.
He took his L, but he got the other guy out, right?
Which also that what you love about that in wrestling is that also created a rivalry between him and that person going forward.
Yes.
So,
and you're the last guy. You come in, and you like a heavy hitter.
You feel good, right?
You feel good.
Feel good.
Is it luck of the draw or is it politics?
So it all depends, right? Like as we know, it's scripted. So I guess they go based off of whoever they're looking for. Obviously, nowadays the last person is usually somebody you want to debut or somebody that's coming back from injury that you haven't seen in a long time. Which is another thing what I like about the Royal Rumble is because you'll get those wrestlers that either debut from another company that you've been like really excited to see, or somebody's had an injury, has been out for months, they come back. So like right now, there's a wrestler, Cody Rhodes, who left AEW. He made his debut in WrestleMania, his past WrestleMania in WWE. Dusty Rhodes' son, right? Dusty Rhodes' son. I'm sorry, made his debut in WWE. Like huge hype around him. Gets injured. But now they're saying he might come back in the Royal Rumble.
That's his
it'll be
that's how they break him back in.
Right, you bring him back in. You know what I mean? Maybe number 30. Who's coming in? Boom.
It's his. Boom.
Right.
I gotta go with you. I gotta agree with you 100%. Royal Rumble versus SummerSlam. Nothing against SummerSlam. World WrestleMania Junior.
Right.
All right.
WrestleMania Junior. Right.
But Royal Rumble, that's something I used to look forward to. Again, when we used to have the hot box or find out who had the hot box, I would definitely be at somebody's house.
Right, exactly.
So now here's a very important one. Finishers. A finisher. You can't be a wrestler without having a finisher. And going back to like Joe Alonso Jr., when you're still trying to figure out your rhythm,
right?
Are you inspired by a wrestler, like somebody you look up to and try to do a similar finisher? Like imagine you and I, we're in the mat, right? We're at the gym.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, Jose, I kind of want to try my finisher. Can you put your neck right here? And like, how do you come up with a finisher?
I think nowadays, because there's been so many years of wrestling, you kind of almost have to be inspired about whoever's had it, because I don't think there's that many finishers out there unless you're very creative and you create your own that hasn't been done already. You know what I mean? A lot of times you see finishers nowadays that were just regular moves for, the wrestlers in the past. You know what I mean? However, you don't, if you're going to copy, or I don't want to say copy, but if you're going to adapt or adopt a former wrestler's finisher, you got to make sure that wrestler isn't someone like Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know what I mean? Only him can do the stunner. Right now we have a wrestler, Kevin Owens, who does it. It's not the same. It doesn't give you the same impact or the same feel. You know what I mean?
So here's something. Going back to like, again, when I was younger, the finishers weren't too fancy.
Right.
Nowadays, these guys are doing flips and and
true.
it's just like, oh my God.
Very true.
And I don't want to give out the names because we have a couple here. So I got to ask you, Brock Lesnar, monster,
Ooh, huge,
right?
Yeah.
Monster, right? F5.
Beast.
He's got the F5.
Yes, he has the F5.
But we also have Goldberg.
Yes, we do.
Which we're talking WCW. He was the man.
Yep.
And when that whole conversion with WWE and WCW came, I remember Vince McMahon came out there and he was saying, you know what? Who do you guys want on board for WWE? The whole crowd was yelling Goldberg. Everybody wanted Goldberg, right? So Goldberg had the spear and jackhammer.
Yep.
That's like two moves in one.
Two moves in one.
He runs at you, smear,
right.
And then he picks you up and
Yep.
But Brock Lesnar, he manhandles you.
He does manhandle you.
Manhandles
you.
So
he puts you on his shoulders and he'll throw you hard.
And he's a monster.
He's strong as hell.
He's a monster.
Throw you.
He's a monster.
Yes.
So, do you go with Brock Lesnar or do you go with Goldberg?
Oh man, that's so hard. That's so hard. I don't want neither. I don't want to get hit by neither. I'm gonna go politically correct here. I'm gonna go politically. I don't want to get thrown and it possibly land on my head. And I don't want Goldberg just spearing the heck out of me. I'm gonna no. Done.
I'm gonna go with Goldberg, and I'm gonna tell you why. I go with Goldberg because Brock Lesnar looks mean.
Yes.
But Goldberg looks like he hates you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
He just looks meaner. That spear, boom, I'm out. But at the same time, it picks me up, and it's not just like I'm gonna lightly fall back. This dude, he gives it to full force. I gotta go him. But there's one I missed, and I'm gonna go right back to it. speaking of finisher, what's the better finisher? A submission where they put you in a hold and you have to tap out. You have to cry, "Uncle, no mas, no more. I quits." Or do you work on a signature move that is just like boom, hit you hard, they pin you 1, 2, 3, you're out. Submission or signature?
I love submissions. I think I'm going to go with the submission. There is just something about that dramatic feel. Is he going to tap? Is he not going to tap? You know what I mean? There's something like when Kurt Angle ever hit his ankle lock, right? You knew the other guy was in pain.
Yes.
But what's going to happen in that moment? And there's just something about when you have that in.
And he's trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Yes,
right?
and then if you're the one giving the submission, you have that control, and you're just waiting for that guy to tap. So you're either cranking it harder. Chris Jericho with the Walls of Jericho.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
that looks like it hurt.
I mean, Bret Hart. I'm sorry, Bret Hart with the sharpshooter. You know,
Classic.
Ric Flair with the leg
Figure
lock.
4 leg lock.
Figure four.
I heard a lot of my cousins trying to figure out how to put that move together. I apologize in advance, but
Right.
you know what? It's difficult. I'm gonna pick one, but I'm gonna tell you where the struggle is. Number one, signature. Now, if you did a basic signature move for like back in the day, but today you got to be very creative to do a signature.
Yes,
However, a submission, it plays with your manhood.
Yep.
It makes you think, "Ay, Dios mío, this hurts too much.
Yep.
I have to tap out. If not, this is gonna break. I'm never gonna be the same."
Right.
That's got to mess with you. So I will also pick submission just for that fact that it plays with you, man. It's a psychological thing too.
Yeah.
Can I go through this pain and continue on, or do I try to figure out how to get out of this? Or I mean, it just plays with your head. So we both pick submission. CM Punk as the CTS, and we have OG RIP Razor Ramon or Scott Hall with the Razor's Edge. So CM Punk, I'm sorry, CTS or the Razor's Edge.
I have to go with the Razor's Edge.
Razor's Edge. All right.
I'm a sucker for Razor Ramon, man. He was always one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. Even when he was Scott Hall in the NWO. Great wrestler. Rest in peace, Scott Hall.
Rest in peace, Scott Hall. Now here's something interesting. When he was in the WWE, he was a major heel, right?
Yeah.
And was I a fan of Razor Ramon? Kind of, just because he played like a Cuban character, and
Right.
I come from a Hispanic background. He kind of was like a Scarface kind of attitude, But I don't think he was as big in WWE versus when he came to WCW. Because remember how he came to WCW? He came in there thinking like he was just walking off, like this was like WWE invading WCW.
Yep.
Right. And it wasn't. He was a legit. He just signed over to WCW, but he created that persona.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, these guys are invading.
And there's more coming.
And there's more coming.
Right.
Right. And he brought over some people, and that was the birth of NWO, which is humongous, right?
Humongous.
So I gotta go with you there. All right. Two legends, rest in peace. This is a tough one. Eddie Guerrero, Frog Splash, or the Macho Man Randy Savage elbow drop.
The elbow drop is iconic. But my favorite wrestler of all time is Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, okay.
Of all time, I have to choose Eddie Guerrero. When he won the championship against Brock Lesnar in 2004, No Way Out, that was everything. That was everything. I was a little kid. I was like, I was young. I was very young at that time, but I cried, man, because it was everything, for someone like Eddie Guerrero who represented us, Latino community, us Mexicans.
Latino Heat.
Yeah, he was Latino Heat. And the way they set that up was perfect because he had a monster of a mountain, Brock Lesnar, in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
His story was very, very apparent. You knew the drug addictions he had, or like the drug usage he had, and they played it off to that. Like, you're nothing but a drug user. You're nothing. Like, you'll never amount to anything. And the fact that he not only won but beat Brock Lesnar and became the championship for the first time, amazing story. Amazing.
I was going to pick one over the other, but now that you brought that up, I have to change my answer. I have to go politically correct. I was originally leaning towards the Macho Man Randy Savage, right? There is no character, I don't care, in history of wrestling that can play a Macho Man Randy Savage. He was very unique in his ways. He had some iconic matches. Obviously, he passed away very tragically. Yep. His wife passed away very tragically. He's still a very famous Halloween costume to this day. Like, I saw a couple of Macho Man Randy Savages out there this year.
Yeah, you still see him. Absolutely.
And like when he did his interviews, unique. Because he would go real high and then he'd go real low.
Yeah.
You go real high. And
Oh yeah.
yeah. Snap it to a Slim Jim, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
it's just he had that presence. But I mean, Eddie Guerrero though, you brought back some memories that was suppressed in my mind somewhere. You know, I just forgot about it. He was another iconic wrestler that came from WCW at 4 or 5 of them, right? They came over at once when they started doing those transitions. He was one of them, and he definitely made an impact. So I have to change my answer. Bret Hart, the sharpshooter.
Sharpshooter.
Or Kurt Angle ankle lock.
I have to go with Bret Hart.
Bret Hart.
As much as I love Kurt Angle, one of my favorite wrestlers, that sharpshooter. I feel like that sharpshooter is a lot harder to get out of than the ankle lock, for sure. For sure.
Now check this out. Kurt Angle, he was wrestled in the Olympics.
He did.
So he
with
knows,
a broken freaking neck, as he likes to say all the time.
Look at that, with a broken neck. So I mean, does he know wrestling? Yeah, he knows wrestling. And there's two kinds of wrestling. We should have said this at the beginning. We have wrestling that you see in the Olympics.
Yeah.
When you go to a college, they have a professional wrestling team. It's very different than the wrestling that you see on TV.
Yep.
Right. I say that because Kurt Angle knows if I do this is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
If I do that, that's gonna hurt. He knows. However, Bret Hart came from the infamous Hart family.
Yes.
Out in Canada.
Yep.
His father raised some G's, boy. I mean, they knew how to wrestle.
They did. Tough man.
But the sharpshooter does look like it hurts, bro. And like he sits on your back, pushes his weight on you.
All the pressure going on your back.
It's not only your back, it's your legs, everything. Ankle lock is just your ankle.
Right. Like
don't get me wrong, that hurts though too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people just roll out of it. You know what I mean? Because you have almost essentially your whole body to get out of it.
Oh.
But as far as the sharpshooter goes, you really only have your upper torso to try to crawl to the ropes. That's the only way you're able to get out of that. That's it.
And that's a painful journey.
Exactly.
That is a very painful journey from the ropes. I'm sorry, especially if he does it in the middle of the ring.
Right.
Right. It's like, okay, if he caught you a little bit at the edge, caught you slipping. But no. Okay. All right. So those were the finishers. Now here's the real difficult. Because these are all legends, and it's very difficult. I'm gonna have to do a couple politically corrects. I don't know. We're gonna see where this goes,
right?
Based on this conversation. Overall wrestler, right?
Oof.
Whether it be the impact he had on you, also keep in consideration the impact he had on the community of wrestling. Overall, merch sold. Did you have his toy? Did you rock his T-shirt? I mean, whatever. The first one is got to be the hardest one. I think I have an answer for you, but I did hear you mention this one person was one of your favorites. So I don't know. You might talk me out of it. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair.
It's a good choice. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. I want to be politically correct here because both are great. But the more I'm thinking about it, Ric Flair, I feel like had such a great career. 16-time world champion, still hasn't been broken to this day.
Yeah.
Nobody has yet. It's been tied. John Cena tied it.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody has ever broken Ric Flair's 16-time world champion.
He was a character. He was a heel.
Yes.
Super heel, right?
He was a heel you love to hate.
I don't know, man, because that's okay. Later on, he after WCW, no longer became a company. He did come over to WWE.
Yeah.
But it was like Hulk Hogan was the champion for WWE for so long.
Yep.
And Ric Flair was the champion for so long in WCW. Those were like the two representatives. So you had one baby face and you had one heel for the company. Ric Flair also was in the Horsemen.
Yes, he was.
Another iconic villain heel group. Figure 4 leg lock, iconic.
Yep.
It's an iconic finisher. You can't mention Ric Flair without going woo, right?
Yep. Exactly, right.
He had the lifestyle. He was rich. He had all the ladies going crazy the whole night. However, Hulk Hogan, iconic, man. He was the one that you wanted to root for. He was the hero. He's the one everybody inspired to be. He's been in movies. He always tell you to take the vitamins and this and that. Yep. Came out with the All-American. Say your prayers and all that. Yep. And then now here, check this out. This is how you know people loved Hulk Hogan. Because all of that, right?
Yep.
He made the ultimate double cross when he went to WCW, not necessarily WCW, but when he joined the NWO and became a villain, he became a heel. And instead of people hating him for it, they actually said, you know what? I'm going to go heal myself. He made people cross over.
Yes, because he had that charisma. There's someone like that. There was someone like Roman Reigns is right now is probably the best thing going in wrestling. One of the greatest heels going in wrestling right now is Roman Reigns. But for so long he was a babyface, and everybody waited and wanted him to turn heel. And when he did, amazing. Hulk Hogan was that same guy, babyface for so long. But when he finally turned heel, it was just different. It was different because, as you said, people followed him even then. You know,
they did, man. And you know what? He changed his whole look.
He did.
You know, and
yellow to black.
All black.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
With the yellow beard, with the black and all that.
Yes.
And he brought other heroes, baby faces, onto his side too. And they were all, and everybody seemed like they were NWO. So I gotta say Hulk Hogan just because of that. Because he's the only like a man. Well, Ric Flair was always heel. Like he never really was the baby face, right?
Right.
Even though he kind of like mentored in WWE, like Triple H and all them, and was like the father kind of figure.
Yeah.
But I gotta say Hulk Hogan just for that impact. He got away with both.
The one thing about Ric Flair is you mentioned he went to WWE. He had some great legendary matches in WWE. His final match with Shawn Michaels was one of the greatest of all time, for sure. And that was at WrestleMania to retire Ric Flair.
He even said like, "I'm sorry," right before he kicked him.
Yes, Shawn Michaels like, "I'm sorry," and then final sweet chin music over.
So now
great match.
I'm gonna say something, but I don't want it to sound disrespectful.
Go ahead.
About Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Towards the end, was he in the wrestling ring? Yes. But all I really saw from him at that point was a bunch of chops.
Yeah.
He was just chopping people.
Yeah.
And chops hurt, absolutely. That breaks my soul just watching it, right? That's all he really had, though. He didn't really have the athleticism to keep going. Like, at least Hulk Hogan, does he still got it? Because he still wrestled to a very old age.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's still wrestling or not, but he was still more like athletic. He had more than a chop.
Yeah, absolutely.
He can still slam you. He can still do this. He can still do that. I don't think Ric Flair could do it towards the end.
No, he didn't. You're right, and that was probably the only. If you want to, I guess, critique that was it. That was basically it. You're right. He didn't have much in the arsenal anymore towards the tail end of his career, but everyone knew that. That's why you paired him up with a wrestler like Shawn Michaels that will basically do the rest. You know what I mean? You do what you got to do. I'll carry this match, and they did, and it was a great match.
Yes, I have to agree with you. All right, so Hulk Hogan, me, Ric Flair, you. All right, now here's another tough one. Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock Dwayne Johnson?
Oh my God, this is probably the toughest one. I'm gonna have to go play. I can't choose between these two. These two wrestlers were literally everything to me growing up. You know what I mean? Like that was my era. Growing up the Attitude Era, and both The Rock and Stone Cold, like I would tune in for them,
just for them too.
Well, at first, right, for them too, because they were so iconic. They were everything in the wrestling community around that time. You know what I mean?
And those were like you said, that was the Attitude Era.
Yeah, the Attitude Era.
So would you consider Stone Cold the babyface or a heel, or The Rock a babyface or a heel?
So Stone Cold for much of those rivalries. Because they had a rivalry up like 3 or 4 times. Stone Cold, I think, majority was babyface, but they did have a rivalry where it was reversed, and as Stone Cold was the heel. But when Stone Cold's a heel, like similar to Hulk Hogan, you have fans behind him. They want to cheer for him because he's just so funny. But so is The Rock. That's why it just made it amazing. They chemistry for sure.
So they were like the anti-heroes, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. They were
anti-heroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I remember from Stone Cold Steve Austin, he was in WCW first, and then he came over to WWE, right? Yep. And I think how he got really now I don't want to say famous, but he got more influential is when he started the rivalry with Vince McMahon.
Yes, he did. Yep.
Right, and that was like unheard of,
yep.
And it was like personal. It looked personal, like that acting. Academy Award goes to those two. I mean, they played it off,
yep.
And that was in response to NWO, because NWO was getting all the ratings. So WWE said, we got to come up with something to bring people over to this side. And that's where that happened. And he was also known, he has an awesome finisher. Give him the beer, boom. He was a bully. But then The Rock, he started off like he wanted people to like him, but he was like a heel for a while.
Yeah, he was heel for a while.
And then he kind of he would like insult you.
Yes.
He would make fun of you. And like nothing crazy, no crazy insults, but they were just like,
oh, there were some crazy insults, but that's what the fans loved. Let's be honest. That's what the fans really loved, were the crazy insults when he was really going in on whoever he was going in on. And that's what made The Rock The Rock. You know what I mean? But I'm glad you brought the Stone Cold Vince McMahon rivalry, because it was so personable to the fans and for WWF at the time. because who didn't at that moment really like their boss? You know what I mean? So it was like, here you are, Stone Cold, who really doesn't care about anything, who's blunt. He was everything you wanted to be in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you can't really tell your boss at work, he was able to tell his, and that's what really made it personable for you. You know what I mean?
This is very true. But only he could do it.
Exactly.
If I walk into my
Exactly.
boss's office right now and kick him in the stomach and
Right.
that's the end of my job, right?
Right.
But obviously it's a different industry, and
Yes.
they had some decent matches. And I got to give it to Vince McMahon. Like he's no pushover either. Like
No.
he could take a hit, he could take a slam.
He was in shape.
He was in shape.
And he was in shape.
He was in shape.
Yeah.
I got to give it to him. But you know what? I have to pick The Rock, and only because of this. I like the fact that not only can he kick your butt, but he can make fun of you and then kick your butt.
Right.
Right. And then I also like the impact, like what he did after his career, after the wrestling. Right. He became a huge movie star. I think he's like one of the highest paid actors out there in Hollywood. Right.
Yeah.
And he made the transition. He's more iconic to me. And I saw something the other day.
Now, for sure, like he out of the two, he's made the most of his career.
Oh yes,
100%.
And his drive. This is why I really like it. Like Stone Cold, he looks like he's just strong.
Right.
Does he hit the gym? I'm sure he does.
Yeah, even now. Yeah.
He drinks some beer, hits the gym. But I saw something the other day, man. It was The Rock. He gets up like at 4 something in the morning to work out. Every day to work out. Does a couple things around the house. He works out a few times a day. And that's why he's shredded. I mean, this guy's massive, right? So I got to give it to The Rock only because of that. Now, here's another tough one. I don't think it's that tough for me, but it might be for you. Triple H or The Undertaker?
Ooh, this is tough for me because, again, two other wrestlers that I grew up watching that were one of my favorites. How can you not choose The Undertaker, though? How can you not choose? I feel like his character was much more iconic. Triple H brought you DX. He was the Game for a while. He brought you Evolution when he was with Ric Flair, Randy Orton, Batista. But The Undertaker is The Undertaker. You know what I mean? Like he wrestled for decades, still with that one gimmick. And whenever the lights went on, you heard that bell.
Dun.
Yeah, I've got to say, right? I got to say that I got to experience that. I got to see it live, and oh my god, there's nothing like it. Nothing.
I gotta agree with you. Undertaker.
Yeah.
I remember watching him when he was first in WWE, like his first matches.
Yeah.
And we talked about finishers earlier. Like once you get hit with a finisher, most likely you get out of it. I mean, you don't get out of it. You get pinned or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He fought Jake the Snake Roberts. And remember his finisher? He used to do the DDT.
Yeah, the DDT. Yeah.
He must have DDT'd the Undertaker a few times, and he got out of every single one.
Every single one.
And that was unheard of. Like you don't get out of a finisher. Like
Right.
once they hit it on you, that's it. And he got out of it.
Right.
And back then he was very slow.
Yeah.
They hit you, he would just kind of slowly look at you, slowly do this. But then later on, he kind of the character of the Undertaker evolved.
Yep.
He got real demonic once upon a time. He got real evil.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
he just became like a Harley bad, whatever.
He went from the Ministry to Darkness to America Badass, basically.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes, definitely. But Triple H though, look at right now his impact in WWE.
Yep.
He's the man. He is the man.
He is. For
So,
sure.
but I got to say Undertaker on that one too. So, okay. Last question. Now, this is probably more your era, but I have my answer. But this one, another one, tough one for you.
Okay.
John Cena or Randy Orton?
That is a tough one. But it's not as hard for me. I love John Cena. I really, 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 really do. But it got to the point where I got tired of John Cena.
Oh, didn't expect that.
There was a point where it was like where they just it felt like WWE kept pushing him down the fans' throat. Like, okay, champion again. Here we go, another John Cena thing. And he was another one of those guys. He's in shape. He could do much, right? He can do a lot. I mean, but he has the same moves almost all the time. You knew what to expect from a John Cena match.
Mm.
He's had some great matches. Don't get me wrong, but it just there was some fatigue there, right?
Mm.
I gotta choose Randy Orton because he's still wrestling to this day. And what I like about Randy Orton, he has range with his characters. He does.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Randy Orton at one time, they used to call him, what was the
Legend Killer.
The Legend Killer.
The Legend Killer, yeah.
The Legend Killer.
Yep. So that's something. He was a Legend Killer, Randy Orton. Then he was the Viper. Then right before he got injured, he was in a tag team with Matt Riddle, and Matt Riddle was like a stoner, like skateboarding kind of guy, and Randy Orton played. It's like two polar opposite characters, but Randy Orton was able to coexist with him so well. It was hilarious, which is why I got to choose Randy Orton.
Randy Orton. Okay, I'm gonna say John Cena, only because Randy Orton. I get where you're coming from,
Right.
and he was a heel for sure.
Yeah,
but he just never did anything for me like that.
yeah.
John Cena, he came out one time with Wu-Tang, like Method Man, like that's his music. He came out with the spinning belt,
Right.
and he was just very aggressive. I gotta go John Cena.
It's a good pick. It's still a good pick, regardless, for sure.
So let's go ahead. So the way this works out is there's a lot of ones. I don't know if you guys can see this on the screen. So there's a lot of ones on here, and there's some twos. So I'm going to count all the ones first, and then all the twos, whatever it adds up to, I'm going to subtract it. So whoever has the highest score at the end wins. All right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got 10 points. Subtract 2, 4, 6. It's not looking good.
It's 4 points.
4. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 4, 6. Oh. We got a tie?
Yeah.
We got a tie.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We got a tie. So,
there you go.
and it's funny because we started off the show saying we're not going to be politically correct.
Right, we're not. But you know what? There were some questions, and then they're like, you know what? How can I choose one over the other?
Yes. So, are we men? Are we bored? We're somewhere in between.
We're
somewhere in between.
We're in puberty right now.
Yes, we're in puberty right now. My voice is changing. Okay,
Right,
so
exactly.
ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. We're almost out of time, but I definitely want to talk about a couple things. So
Yes.
you and I were talking off the air.
Yeah.
The impact that Vince McMahon had
Yeah.
on the wrestling community.
Absolutely.
We talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
Way back when wrestling wasn't as well known, it was broken up into different territories.
Yeah.
So depending on where you lived in the country is depending where you got your wrestling. And
Yeah.
everybody had their stars, everybody had their wrestlers. And it wasn't until later on where some of those territories started aligning themselves, and that's how we got the WWEs, back then WWF, and we got the WCWs, right? And now it's a little different because now it's the WWE is still a major player, but now we have another one, AEW.
AEW.
And are they as big as WWE? I think
No, I don't think you can't really get as big as WWE, but they're the biggest competition they have.
right.
They have TV rights deal, just like the WWE has TV rights deal with USA and Fox. Well, they have it with Turner, with TNT, TBS. So they're there.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely there, but they're one of the only ones that can compete.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the only reason why it's competition like WCW was back in the day with WWF is because you have wrestlers who would leave WWE
Yes.
and will go to AEW. And what does that say about WWE?
Mhm.
Right? Now, that was when Vince McMahon was there and in charge. Vince McMahon was one of those guys who never really allowed his talent to really have their own characters, have their own persona. Everything had to be run by him.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mhm.
And fans were getting tired of it. The product in WWE wasn't as good. The only reason why AEW was even exists today is because those wrestlers wanted to create a company where they had control. Of everything.
I get that aspect. I get that aspect very well.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon for a long time had a monopoly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
As far as on the majors, let's talk about wrestling. He swallowed up WCW. I shouldn't say swallow. That's a bad word. But he bought WCW.
Yeah.
He bought ECW,
Yep.
which was his two major competitors,
Yes.
right? He was on top for a while. I think TNA had wrestling for a little
Yes,
bit.
it did, yep.
Was there another one besides that?
There's Ring of Honor. There's a bunch of independent ones, but they never really flourished.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really good point. You brought that, right? He was able to buy them out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy out AEW because the owners are as rich as he is, if not richer.
Ooh.
You have Shaka Khan, who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars,
Mhm.
and Tony Khan, who's his son. And these guys, they have money.
They are okay.
They
So
have
they
money.
can go blow for blow with him.
Yes, they can.
I mean, do they really though?
What do you
I
mean?
don't know, man.
Well,
Vince McMahon, I think he had the market cornered. He had not only WWE,
right?
He had the pay-per-views, he had the merch, all the toys. He had the biggest influence. Dude, he came from the Jaguars. He had some football money, some sports money, a little bit of wrestling money, but I think Vince, if he really wanted to, he could have bought them out if he wanted to.
What,
I don't thi- I-
AEW?
yeah, I think
There's
he could have.
no way.
You don't think so?
No. Again, AEW is a product of Vince McMahon's shortcomings in WWE. Look, WWE is the biggest wrestling platform there is right now. 100%. It still is. because of everything it's been through. It's still $1 billion company.
Oh hell yeah!
You know what I mean? It's still $1 billion company.
No argument for me.
AEW is nowhere near there yet. But again, it's when you have someone like Tony Khan, who's a big wrestling fan himself, and he's the owner of AEW. There's too much pride. He would not allow his company. He would rather foreclose.
Money talks, bro. Money talks. Money talks.
There's hatred there. It's a big rivalry between AEW and WWE right now. It's to the point where WWE is. Well, they're both being very petty with each other. They would schedule pay-per-views on the other brands' pay-per-views to limit viewership and audience. So
okay, Vince McMahon, right? Iconic in the wrestling for a long time. If you had an argument with your boss, you would flip sides. A lot of wrestlers would go one way, they come back, they leave, they come back, they leave, they come back. But now he's no longer in the picture.
Yes,
he's no longer in the picture. He's no longer. I guess CEO, if you want to call him that, CFO. I don't know what his official title was.
He was CEO. Yeah,
CEO of wrestling, WWE,
yep.
And now Triple H's.
Yep.
So, does AEW now have an opportunity to overstep WWE because Vince McMahon is no longer there? Not taking anything away from Triple H, not taking anything away from him. However, Vince was the brain.
Yes, he was. And the answer is going to be surprising for you because I feel like WWE is in a much better place now with Triple H than they were with Vince McMahon. See, now that Triple H is in charge, Triple H is the complete opposite of Vince McMahon. He understands what these wrestlers want, and he's giving them more freedom. And Triple H ran NXT, which is their third promotion. It's like a developmental one that you see it's live every Tuesday. Triple H was in charge of that, and for a while, I felt like NXT was part of the better WWE product they were putting out there. So now that Triple H is head of content, basically, it's chief of content. That's his CCO, his title, right? Now that he's doing that, everybody now wants to go back to WWE. Everybody that left AEW that are under contract are rumored to want to go back there,
because of Triple H.
Triple H, because he was such a mentor for them. And he's allowing them to do the same thing. He's not dumb. He's smart. Hey, if this is what you guys really want, come back over here. We're a bigger company, and I'll give you that.
So you think AEW is at a disadvantage?
Yes. Now that Triple H is in charge, they're in a definitely disadvantage. And right now, they're in disarray. And we'll talk about that in a bit.
Disarray. Well, Jose, talk a little bit about that because we got about 3 minutes. Can you squeeze it in there in 3 minutes?
So real quickly, the reason why I say they're in disarray because they had a really big superstar in CM Punk who was there. CM Punk came from WWE, was fired because he was very outlandish. He very disrespectful. There were times where when he would go out and cut a promo, he would get personal and say a lot of bad stuff about the company and the powers that be. So he had an issue. He had a character issue. Left for a while. Fans always wanted CM Punk to come back. Came back in AEW. Finally, it was one of the biggest stories ever. And now it's the same exact thing going on there. Same exact thing. Once he became a champion, they had a post-fight interview where he was just supposed to talk about his matches and everything. Went completely off script, completely off the rail. Started talking about a former friend of his that he hates that was there. Rumors he was debunking rumors that were there. From supposedly executive vice presidents who were wrestlers. He would call them out saying very disrespectful things, and it just went haywire to the point where afterwards in his locker room, those wrestlers that he were talking about met him in the locker room, and they got into a big fight.
What you talking about, Willis? Oh,
right.
Man. So CM Punk, okay. All right.
And that makes AEW look very weak. You just lost one of your biggest draws out there, and the entire time he was saying it, the owner was right there. People are saying Vince McMahon would have never let that happen. How can someone like Tony Khan let that happen? He had to suspend everybody.
But he did that live?
Yeah, that was live.
Ooh.
It was live, and he had to suspend everybody. Everybody involved had to get suspended. These are big-time names in his company, and it's a mess. Man. It's a mess. It's sad to say because AEW is such a good product. So many good wrestlers, and the matches there are amazing, but it's pretty rough.
All right. So, Jose, we have run out of time, but I hope everybody out here enjoyed our little debates about wrestling, about separating the men from the boys. As you guys know, we're somewhere in between. Shouts out to Joe Alonso Jr. Hopefully, we can make this interview happen very soon because we'd definitely love to get more behind your story. And I'm all about supporting Chicago. We're all about supporting Chicago here at ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. It's not just sports, it's a way of life. Don't forget to follow me on all social media platforms. I am Alex the One, getting it done. That's right, all one word, LXDAONE. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, you name it, I'm on there. Any social media platforms. Jose, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Joe Contre 91 on Instagram. Guys, follow Star 6 Media. That's where you'll see me and all my podcasts there. We talk wrestling, MMA, all sports. Star 6 Media on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And you'll get a lot more sports, man. Really good shows for sure.
All right. Heck yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So until next time, everybody, make sure to tune in. ChicagolandSportsRadio.com.